Let's start in the SEC, where we've talked about the group of teams in the middle of these rankings right now. According to the College Football Playoff Committee, you would have every SEC team that makes the playoff on the road, sans Texas, who came in as their presumed SEC champ. And Trey, you in the run sheet wrote that the theme this week is just win to stay alive, especially on the road. You have Ole Miss on the road at Florida, Alabama on the road at Oklahoma, Texas A&M on the road against Auburn, looking ahead, hopefully not, to their game against Texas. Meanwhile, the Longhorns are at home as they take on Kentucky. Of those three teams on the road, which of those three in your mind is most likely to have their season ruined this weekend?
It's got to be A&M, doesn't it? I mean, you just look at the point spreads. Vegas certainly thinks it's A&M. I don't know if it's going to be in Auburn, Alabama, but there's going to be some tomfoolery in the SEC this week. I just have the feeling all three of those teams, you mentioned A&M is looking ahead to Texas next week, potentially. And obviously Mike Elko didn't help that by misspeaking in the press conference this week, but there's going to be some Egg Bowl temptation to look ahead. There's going to be some Iron Bowl temptation to look ahead. I don't care how bad Auburn and Mississippi State are this year. Those are big in-state rivalry games. And Oklahoma and Ole Miss playing Florida, on the surface, if those were ranked teams that they're going into, it's a little bit easier to kick your in-state rival down the road another week. But that game, it's going to be really hard for all three of those teams to be focused and locked in, regardless of their playoff hopes being on the line. But back to your question, it's got to be Texas A&M. I am a nervous wreck about this game. I did not enter Sunday as a nervous wreck, and then that line came out, man, and I was just like seeing all the flashbacks of South Carolina a few weeks ago. So I'm officially a nervous wreck. I hope that the defense can lock down the Auburn run game. I don't think Peyton Thorne can beat you with his arm. So if you can lock down the run game and tackle, I think you're going to be pretty successful. But we've seen them struggle with that over the last few weeks. So I'm official in pucker mode.
Yeah, I think without a doubt, the key to success in Texas A&M and Auburn is tackle, right? You stop the run, you take away what the opposing team really wants to do on offense. I mean, Auburn's numbers, Trey, you actually pointed this out. Auburn's numbers offensively are actually not all that bad. The glaring weakness is that they're minus 11 in the turnover margin this year. That's 128th in the country. And unfortunately for War Eagle, it hasn't mattered if they're on the road or at home. They turn the ball over like it's going out of style. And so I think that, without a doubt, is the biggest thing that Hugh Freeze and company have to overcome. And it's felt like at the absolute worst times too. They've found a way to cough up the football, whether it be a fumble or a Peyton Thorne interception. Conversely, though, for Texas A&M, they don't force a ton of turnovers this year. They've been very timely in the ones that they have forced. But the issue that bit them both at Notre Dame and South Carolina was the big gashing run plays. And Notre Dame is obviously a much more low-scoring game. South Carolina kind of ran away with that contest late. But it was the big run plays set up by a missed tackle or two at the line of scrimmage. Without a doubt, for me, that's what A&M has to get cleaned up. And you heard their players talking about getting the speed, getting used to the speed once again after that bye week. A&M is built to stifle you on defense, and we've seen that at times this season. But if they can't tackle Jarquez Hunter, it's going to be potentially a very long, painful afternoon, evening on the Plains.
I think the only real place where I'll push back on some of that is the problem for the Aggies really has been when it's the quarterback who's a threat to run as well. Because if you're having to second guess yourself, having to kind of maintain that backside, make sure that the quarterback can't escape, that's been where A&M's got burned. And it's, being late to their gap assignments, and then the running back gashes you because you were second guessing yourself. It's that kind of a thing that's been the problem for the Aggies. It was a problem when Riley Leonard was doing it at the beginning, and it was definitely a problem with Lenora Sellers. Where you've seen the Aggies have success, even against teams who have been able to run the football and have had success running the football, you've seen the Aggies have success against the teams like Missouri and LSU on the schedule, where the quarterback is not a threat to run. So you can just kind of find the running back, figure out where your leverage needs to be, figure out where you need to go, and you can fill those gaps and play downhill. LSU had been running the football really good coming into the A&M game, and then just, ran for what, like 20-something yards? Like, it was nothing.
Yeah.
And this, again, like Missouri had been running the football well going into that game. They didn't run very well either. I don't think that this is the matchup problem for Texas A&M. I also don't think it'll be the problem next week against Texas. Obviously, a much better quality team in Texas, but it's also not the matchup nightmare that it would be, as if it was, I think A&M would much rather play Texas than maybe Alabama just based on the type of quarterback that beats A&M this year. And so I think when you look at that, I'm not necessarily as worried about the Aggies in this one. I think that they'll be able to get pressure on Thorne. I think that they'll be able to force him to make mistakes. I wouldn't be shocked if he throws 2, maybe even 3 interceptions in this game, just based on pressure alone and not seeing things and being able to kind of confuse him. Set up some short fields, let Marcel Reed kind of go to work. I think the Aggies are going to have a good day in this one. I was going to kind of go the other direction from you guys in terms of what teams need to really look out in the SEC. Ole Miss needs to be careful because Florida's playing a lot better with DJ Lagway at the helm. And, I know that people are going to go back and say, didn't they just get blown out by Texas a couple weeks ago? DJ Lagway wasn't playing in that game. He was hurt in that game. He wasn't able to play. All of a sudden he goes last week, and all of a sudden it looks a lot better. So if DJ Lagway can keep things going, if he can kind of keep on the up and up, and again, this is a 18-year-old kid. Like, he's still progressing. He's still got growth. Week to week, you're going to see leaps and bounds better. This is a Florida team that's playing with some belief and playing with some mojo, and I think that they kind of get to play with house money in their own house with Ole Miss coming in, and we've seen Ole Miss flop. Like, Ole Miss has flopped in a couple of games. They've looked fantastic in certain games, but are you really telling me that you can believe that they're going to go in there and they're all going to be super focused and laser tight and everything's going to be normal against a Florida team that really wants to go in there and make some noise, make a big statement at the end of the year? I don't buy it. I don't think that Ole Miss loses this game, but I think this is one we'll be watching to the very end, and we'll kind of be one of those, late in the fourth quarter, we were like on the edge of our seats waiting to see if Florida can make that one more play to make it happen.
When Ole Miss has struggled this year, it's been giving up the pass, right? Florida's not going to run the ball tremendously well. That's what Ole Miss has to take away. That's what they want to take away. Now, their defensive line is elite. So the pass rush, the pressures, the sacks, all a very real concern for Florida. But I agree. I like the arm of DJ Lagway. I think Florida can keep this a game. So I would take Florida to cover as well. I've got Alabama beating Oklahoma going away.
Yeah, they'll beat the brakes off Oklahoma. The Sooners aren't very good.
Sooners aren't going to a bowl game this year, I don't think.
Nope.
Kentucky at number 3, Texas is interesting because of the spread. As much as I don't necessarily know if Texas's offense is going to just blitzkrieg Kentucky's defense, the Wildcats can't score. They're barely averaging 21 points a game. They're going against the top-ranked total defense and scoring defense in the country in the Texas Longhorns. They're having to do it on the road. They don't have a clear quarterback. I would stay away from the line in this game, but I do feel like Texas wins this one comfortably. I'm more inclined to say that they win it laying the number than Kentucky covering.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. Texas has been a different animal at home this year as well. The Georgia game notwithstanding, they have been really good at home. You saw what they did against the inferior Florida team a couple weeks ago with a third-string quarterback. I think you can expect something somewhat similar this week.
Yeah, I'd be kind of surprised if Kentucky scores 10 points in this game. I just don't think they're going to do anything on offense in this game. The only way that they score 10 is if Texas is up 40 or 50 3 in the fourth, and they just kind of put in the backups, and it's a bunch of garbage time
against
points.
Florida. Yeah,
stuff like that.
Last thing I'll mention, the SEC, Vanderbilt 7.5 point dogs on the road. Guys, what am I missing here? LSU can't defend a mobile quarterback. Vandy's offense is makes even less sense than just a traditional read option offense. I'm taking the doors plus the points.
I'd take them outright.
Wow. Yeah, I mean, the magic's worn off Vanderbilt just a little bit in the last couple of weeks, but the magic has certainly worn off of LSU. And if you look at just the vibes in that program, who's going to be more happy to play this game? I'm going to take a little bit of a bowl game mindset here. Who's more happy to be at this game? Certainly the Vanderbilt Commodores. I'll take them to cover.
Yeah, look, that LSU locker room stinks right now. something is rotten in the state of Denmark, and especially in the state of Baton Rouge. I don't know what's happening. Everything is bad, and I wouldn't want to be in there. Brian Kelly blaming his players for everything, can't take accountability. It's not good at LSU right now, and I'm not going to take that kind of culture in a dogfight possibly with Vanderbilt. No, I'm not taking that.
Certainly feels like one program on the rise, one maybe on the decline, and boy, before the season, that is not the order I would have put those two teams in.
Gracious, how about that?